Our speaker is Estella Kuchta from Simon Fraser University, Canada. Today, she presents her talk on the topic Rethinking Love from Nature's Perspective. Estella Caroline Kuchta is the author of the novel Finding the Daydreamer and co-author of Ecologizing Education, Nature-Centered Teaching for Cultural Change. Currently, she teaches writing and literature at Langara College in Vancouver, Canada. Today, she will give a talk on the topic, Rethinking Love from Nature's Perspective.
Great. So hello, everyone. I'm talking about an ecocentric definition of love, moving beyond the human bias in love research. And I just need to figure out how my arrows work. There we go. So definitions of love in the fields of psychology, cultural studies, philosophy, science, and theology almost always centralize human experiences of love. In doing so, they may be inadvertently reinforcing environmentally problematic assumptions, limiting understandings of the nature, role, and potential of love, and even reducing human capacity for love on biological and conceptual levels. So this presentation provides some evidence for ecocentric love, or eco-love as I call it in brief, as a way to expand conceptions about love. And these expanded conceptions can potentially increase ecological attunement, which is arguably the most critical task facing humanity at this time. Trees, octopuses, oceans, and many others, as well as the land itself, may experience and express love in ways we have yet to comprehend. So let's look for a moment not at love, but at intelligence as a kind of comparison. And we can see that human-centric definitions have been limited in the field of intelligence studies. So environmental sciences and environmental education fields have already discovered that our understanding of intelligence provocatively expands when we set aside notions of human superiority and attempt to objectively study intelligence in other species. For example, we have what seems to be a humble fungus in this picture here. But in fact, this fungus is extremely intelligent in ways that researchers have not yet been able to understand. For example, even though this fungus does not contain any eyes or any biological features that mirror human eyes or animal eyes in any way, they're able to detect light at such a faint level that even a single starlight they can detect. They are also able to avoid objects before they come in contact with them. They have what's called object avoidance. So before they touch a wall, before they come near it, they can sense that it's near and they bend in a different direction. For decades, researchers have been studying this phenomena and they still cannot explain how come this very seemingly simple organism, without the neurobiological features we associate with this type of perception, are able to detect light and able to do object avoidance in these ways. We can't quite figure it out yet. So we can begin re-examining some of our assumptions. Neurobiological systems may constitute only one form of experiencing and expressing love. When a human mother feeds and protects her toddler over the course of years, the action is generally seen as stemming from a kind of love. But mother trees also transfer food to their offspring over the course of years and alert them with chemical signals when predatory insects have moved in. Is this too love? I'm going to take just one small example of how love may be manifest in non-humans by talking about my own relationship with a tree that is right outside my window in a small beech tree park. So it's my own relationship, but also the relationship of this tree to the other humans in the area. So to humans who live in my neighborhood, this tree and its neighboring beech trees are a constant source of beauty through all seasons of the year. They bring about sensual pleasure, the visual image of the tree in all seasons, as well as the scent of the tree, the sound of the leaves rustling in the tree with the breeze, the feeling of crunching on the leaves that have fallen in the autumn. Furthermore, in the summertime, the dense foliage protects humans from heat and sun, and many humans in my neighborhood go take a break from the heat by sitting under the benches that are underneath this and other trees here. Furthermore, researchers have informed us that the fractal design of the leaves and branches is stimulating and calming for humans. Moreover, time spent in nature spaces increases well-being. And in this sense, what I mean by well-being is physical, mental, and emotional well-being and flourishing. So, for example, it reduces inflammation, prevents and reduces numerous mental health disorders, improves immune function, decreases stress, prevents cancer, and even increases longevity. This is a huge and fascinating field for anyone interested in it. But one might begin to ask the question, why have trees evolved in such a way as to provide so many benefits to human flourishing? Furthermore, we can also look at the existence of this tree in the park as a kind of evidence, a sort of proof in itself of the deep connection between a human and this park, because in fact, this small piece of land used to be privately owned. And the elderly woman who was living in this park bequeathed it to the city of Vancouver upon her passing. So in her will, she wrote that as long as the trees were preserved, as long as no development ever happened here, she would give this piece of land to the city of Vancouver so that everybody in the neighborhood could continue to appreciate their relationship with this park, with these trees. So once we begin to think about love in a different way, we can also begin to think about some other cultures in a different way. As a settler here in North American land on traditional Indigenous territory, I'm very interested in what is called the Indigenous gift worldview. So this is the idea in contrast to a Western perspective, the dominant perspective that I and most other people have been raised with here in Canada, in this country. The gift worldview is this idea that the world is fundamentally generous and giving, that nature itself wants to provide and is already in relationship to human beings. And that relationship of gift giving inherently requires some kind of obligation for reciprocity. Now, again, this is much in contrast to the Western dominant view of the natural world, which is one of resource. It's a passive backdrop, it's a resource. We can also begin to perhaps examine the actions of some environmental activists in different light when we begin to see that perhaps their actions are motivated not as much out of anger, but more out of love. So this is an image here of a Fairy Creek protester. In my area of the world, in British Columbia, my province, there's only one remaining area of old growth forest. All the other forest has been clear cut and then regrown. So there's only one remaining area of this old growth forest that, has been in existence for thousands of years. And people have been sitting in very uncomfortable situations out in the rain and the cold over the course of months and on and off over the course of years, trying to work to protect this piece of land and these trees. And from a corporate perspective, from a capitalist perspective, they're seen as domestic terrorists. They've been harassed by and sometimes have experienced violence by the local police forces who have been tasked with going in and removing them. They have been arrested. But if we begin to shift the perspective a little bit, we may see that at least some of them could be operating out of love, out of a kind of deep kinship bond, working to protect the land in the same way they would work fiercely to protect their own family. Potawatomi botanist Robin Wall Kimmerer rightly suggested, knowing that you love the earth changes you, activates you to defend and protect and celebrate. But when you feel that the earth loves you in return, that feeling transforms the relationship from a one-way street into a sacred bond. Hawaiian scholar Manulani Aluli Meyer explained, the old way we described land ocean is to say that it has never not loved us. Land loves. Meyer explained that according to their tradition, the world was created through love, through loving union. Meyer clarified, our separation from this intimacy, This loving process found in our natural world and in all the lessons we explore through this knowing is the true cause of climate change. So eco-love relationships enable different ways of knowing. This is an area that's particularly interesting to me as I pursue my PhD in the philosophy of education. I only have time here to give one example of how this is the case, but there's a burgeoning field of what is called intuitive interspecies communication, with dozens and dozens of peer-reviewed papers being published all the time. People can look this up if they're interested. But intuitive interspecies communication appears from those prominent practitioners who have spoken and taught about it to be fundamentally built on a relationship of interspecies love. And currently, intuitive interspecies communication is taking place and being beneficial in veterinary clinics around the globe, in farming practices in South Africa, in wildlife sanctuaries in various countries within Africa, and even is beginning to be part of the governmental consultation practices here in Canada. So, despite these alternative ways of knowing, which may allow us to enrich what we actually know about the natural world, love for nature is actively suppressed by Western education and perhaps to some degree by all techno-industrial cultures. So we are taught in schools that real education occurs indoors in human-centric spaces with humans in charge, and that natural spaces are replaced or colonized by artificial turf, by buildings, by man-made playgrounds. Nature is very much backgrounded. It's valued as a resource to humans. When a child asks a teacher, what is a tree for? The teacher is likely to say a tree is for making paper. Children's relationships with nature are viewed as dangerous in many contexts in educational settings. For example, permission forms are required for nature excursions, but are not required for children to stay indoors, which also incurs many dangers that are seldom discussed. And as Blankensoft and colleagues discuss, older boys in school actively belittle sensitivity to nature, not only to gain a sense of power over nature lovers, but to enforce the cultural norms of hyper-separation. So reduced relational capacity may affect the ability to bond with nature, but also in a negative feedback loop, reduced bonding with nature may affect relational capacity as well. So in general, North American cultural practices are reducing relational capacity. Many scholars have discussed this, but also less time spent in nature may disrupt emotional development and communication skills and even lower IQs, which of course can have an impact on social development and on the bonding in general, on the capacity for love. And lastly, damage to nature in the form of pollutants and man-made chemicals may be changing human capacity for social interactions by altering hormones. In conclusion, love, as we know, is the ultimate transformative agent. Of course, love relationships including those with the land, involve degrees of risk. But if we want people to act rightly toward the earth, we might begin by helping them notice the profound generosity, care, protectiveness, beauty, sensuality, support, commitment, and abundance offered by the natural world, and to understand that these may be expressions of love toward us.
Wow. Thank you very much. I think we can take time for no questions, not even one. Oh, okay. Sorry. Okay. Well, thank you again.
Thank you.